And Notre Dame, like, to me, we talked about this last week. I don't think their path, like, can go any further as an independent. Like, they are eventually, it's either going to be which falls first. The ACC, does that crumble, or does the college football playoff, which doesn't have a contract past 2026 right now, which goes first? Because that's going to determine where Notre Dame goes. But to me, their path towards making it to a national championship, like, it's legitimized and it's made probably like a lot more clear if they join one of these conferences. Now, logically, it makes sense for them to join the Big Ten. And after all of these years of the Big Ten chasing Notre Dame, it would be a real something if they end up in the SEC after all of this. And honestly, I get a lot of flack back in Chicago for this. I don't think Notre Dame wants that SEC smoke. I think that they think that their path is a lot more clean and a lot clearer by joining the Big Ten and beating up on the teams like Northwestern, like my Hoosiers, like things that the teams they would be paired up against every year.
Well, history tells us that Notre Dame doesn't want any part of the SEC.
Yes, it does.
But I'll tell you this, if Notre Dame decides to join the Big Ten, you look at their rivalry with USC, you're going to have that within the conference. It's going to make the conference that much stronger.
Michigan, too.
Yes, I was just about to mention Michigan in the years that they played there. But it just makes sense regional-wise. They're in the state of Indiana. You have Indiana already in the Big Ten. Why not add a Notre Dame? But that school's history, and they do have money now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit up here and say they need to do it.
Their athletic budget, though, like, they would have to pay the big fee to leave the ACC, and that's fine. Like, their football budget can handle that, but, like, their athletics department budget right now, you know, could use a little bit of help, and I feel like the only way that you get there is by joining one of these, by joining the Big Ten. It has to be one of these two conferences. They're not going to remain independent much longer, as much as their brand, and, you know, they want to, we talked with Paul Feinbaum about this last week, like, you know, touting the academic institution that they are and using that kind of as like a leverage play and being like, oh, we don't want to join a super conference because of that. To remain independent, I don't buy that. I feel like their only path towards actually becoming a national champion and not getting blown out by other teams like the SEC, like, which happens every single year that we see them in the CFP, is by going to one of these super conferences.
Well, plus you have the Rose Bowl where we see those two teams out west play, and teams who doesn't normally get an opportunity to play out there in the Rose Bowl because they're just so terrible can go out there and play in the Rose Bowl and have that experience now.
I mean, what has to give for them to make that decision? Is it the pressure, or do you think there's some stubbornness there?
I think it's money for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, their TV deal right now, like, remaining an independent, like, their TV deal, I believe, is up in a couple years. So that's probably going to be like the tipping point for Notre Dame. But like I said, I feel it's either one or the other. College football playoff crumble first, or is it the ACC? Because remember, that's where all their other sports are.
Yep.
You can remain independent as a football team right now, but the ACC and what happens with those schools, like, who gets poached next? Is it Clemson? Is it Florida State? Like, where do they go? That's probably going to determine how accelerated this thing gets for Notre Dame joining.
The funny thing about that is that we had Adam Rittenberg on radio, and I was asking him about, hey, will a Clemson go to the SEC? And one of the things that he brought to my attention is that the Clemson has had the success over the last decade. When you look at brands like the Miami Hurricanes, who've been doing it since the 80s, he told me basically the SEC would probably take a Miami Hurricanes over a Clemson Tigers because of the brand that the Miami Hurricanes are.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.